Howdy, folks. Welcome to Redneck Gone Green. I'm your host, David Cobb. I am the redneck, and you bet I've gone green, and I'm trying to convince you to do it too. And a reminder, when we say go in green here on this program, we mean it on a multiple of levels. The two most important ones, first, green as in deep ecology, not merely conservation, not even merely sustainability, but a recognition and embrace of the reality that all life is connected on Mother Earth, and that whatever we do to the web of life, we will ultimately do to ourselves. And whether you come at that from a hard science position, or you come at it from an eco-spiritual feminist perspective, or like me, you say those are both ways to understand and know the truth, we like to say we are connected whether you like it or not, whether I like it or not, and we better damn well start acting like it. The second way we mean green is Green Party. I am a proud and unapologetic member of the Green Party. I work with progressive Democrats, socialists, people who don't vote at all, but I will not hide who I am. I'm a member of the Green Party because of the Green Party's principles of a commitment to peace, justice, democracy, and ecology, peaceful revolution. And I think that the Green Party's role as the electoral arm of a growing movement is critical in this moment. And in this moment well, I don't know how else to say it, but the moment is intensifying. From New York City and Columbia University, spread across to Los Angeles, now up to Humboldt, Americans of conscience have engaged peaceful demonstrations of solidarity over the past week, only to encounter what can only be called repressive state violence. For better or for worse, this past week has offered reasons for both hope as well as outrage at Washington, reasons to celebrate, support, extend, and amplify resistance. And today, we're going to be joined with two voices that are part of that joyful resistance. The first, and I happen to know them both, so it's my pleasure first to bring on Margie Wolf. Margie is somebody I got to know for the last couple of years. She was very active in the Earth Day to May Day celebrations last year and this year. She's been serving a volunteer and support role for the demonstrations at Cal Poly Humboldt. And Margie, welcome to Redneck Gone Green.
Hi, David. It's so pleasant to see you today. I hope you're doing as well as you can be in an unwell world.
What a beautiful salutation. And next, I want to bring another dear friend of mine, Nicola Walters, into the conversation. Nicola, likewise, has been a leader in not only the Earth Day to May Day organizing, but basically social change efforts as well. I've gotten to know Nicola. She's been at the leadership position with the Decolonizing Economics Summit for ever since the second year, and this is our fifth year now. But Nicola is also a lecturer in the political science department at Cal Poly Humboldt. She's also a leader at the California Faculty Association. She's the coordinator of the Decolonizing Economics Summit. Nicola, welcome to Redneck Gone Green.
Thank you so much, David. And I wanted to just comment that with the whole Redneck Gone Green approach, I just love how this type of show focus is so intersectional just in how it's formed. And that's really, I think, what we're looking at addressing today as well. So thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you so much. And listen, look, the first thing I want to do is actually give each of you a chance to just share with listeners and viewers, because remember what we have are, we've got live viewers, but we've also got viewers that will be watching the video on YouTube and Rumble and Facebook. We have people who are listening to the podcast that's going to be recorded. So I want to give each of you an opportunity to share what has drawn you into the movement at this moment and what role you've been playing. And I'll start with you, Marjorie.
Thank you, David. My role has been as a support system for my fellow students. I was called by friends in my CRGS classes to come and be a witness in case there was police brutality. And I showed up on campus at about 10 a.m. Tuesday morning, and it seemed like a need for people to be helping people get water and food, and there was a snack area. So I put myself there and have just been trying to help people and support people in the community as we get through this situation that has been blown completely out of proportion by the administration. Tom Jackson and Mark Johnson were calling for their resignation.
So thank you, Margie. And I'm going to invite you, Nicola, to share the same basic opening thoughts, just to orient ourselves into this conversation.
Thanks, David. So it's interesting because I like just making those comments about the intersections of things that draw me in. I feel like I've been drawn into this moment from wearing just all the different hats that I wear. So being a lecturer in the politics department at Cal Poly Humboldt, for years, I have been speaking out and organizing with my colleagues as part of the California Faculty Association, our union that represents all of our Unit 3 faculty on campus, including librarians, lecturers, coaches, counselors, and tenure line professors. And so I really have sort of seen what has been happening on our campus from the internal meetings and discussions that we've been having, and really battles over holding the line on faculty employment and student learning conditions more acutely over the last 3 years, but since I joined as a faculty member in 2017. And so just being on campus and being someone who teaches students and interacts with colleagues and offers support in the roles that I have, I'm just there drawn in from just that position in and of itself. But then on top of that, because my role with the California Faculty Association is I work with the statewide board. I'm a board member that holds the role of membership and organizing chair. I coordinate with all 23 campuses with our representatives that do membership and organizing to help to provide resources and move us as we're trying to secure contract gains and win the things that we so desperately need within higher education. So I really defend education on so many different levels in the classroom, on my campus specifically, and across California. And then on top of that, with the Decolonizing Economics Summit, so many of our organizers are students or faculty or community members in Humboldt. So we're all affected by these kinds of issues as they come up. So as soon as things started happening on Monday, I'm there on the live stream. I actually live outside of Humboldt these days in Eugene, Oregon. But following along with what was happening and having an opportunity to see what the response was, I was just not surprised and also horrified at the same time. It was like, oh my gosh, Humboldt is at it again. And so it was all hands on deck. It felt like as soon as I was watching on the live stream put together by our student reporters, seeing the escalated response, as Margie was just talking about. And then Tuesday, it's like, okay, we got to jump into action here. What are we going to do as a community to really help support this? And so as I coordinate and do a lot of have different roles of working with our government relations and working with membership and organizing chairs and working with our staff and our statewide leaders, I try to work with those folks so that we can get the message out, contact media, talk to our elected officials, do all the things that puts pressure, even though I can't be there physically holding the line with my body, but seeing where the needs are and trying to help support. Then also trying to help support my students as they're going through this challenge, trying to support my colleagues as they're going through this challenge, and then being on within those internal meetings when at the university senate, we voted almost unanimously. It was 174 votes that voted together a vote of no confidence for President Tom Jackson and his chief of staff, Mark Johnson, to resign. So I've been there battling on all these different levels that have kind of coalesced within this space. And I tend to sort of, I'm feeling a little tired from having to do all this stuff, but really it's kind of like, this is where I guess my energy can go. And this is where people were identifying needs. And so if I have something that I can help with and support with, then I'll do my best to be there. And that's what I've been up to.
So what I'd like to do, because that's a lot, but what I want to do is back up because folks may not be as familiar, and I suspect many of our listeners, viewers may not be as familiar specifically with Cal Poly. So I want to point out that what we're seeing is, again, across the country, led by students, a mass resistance to the genocide that is happening right now in Gaza. And Margie, I'm going to turn to you to ask you to take us through to the best of your ability. So, like when Nicola says Monday, she doesn't mean yesterday. She means a week ago, Monday, right? So, what happened a week ago last Monday? Margie?
Last Monday, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear
great.
you.
Last Monday. Okay. Last Monday, students attempted to start a vigil for Palestine around the administration's offices to ask that they disclose and divest from any ties with Israel and the Israel Defense Forces. And administration within about a half an hour had called every police force in the county to converge upon Cal Poly Humboldt against the students, took a helicopter away from a search and rescue operation to surveil the students, and police stormed into Siemens Hall, and students immediately pushed the police back after realizing that this was, I think it was like organically happening. Students didn't realize that they weren't allowed to ingress and egress out of the building. And then the police started scuffling with students. And then other students started becoming protective of the students. And after the first scuffle with the police, the students inside the building started barricading the doors. And
some folks may,
at that point was when you could see the video. The video that most people have seen with the water jug that has become very like emblematic of this protest was used to defend students from being battered with the battering shields as police tried to forcefully make them exit a hall that actually belonged to them as students. I think that everything escalated from that moment. And from what I heard and what I saw in videos and from talking to friends, the police standoff was really strange because many of the sheriffs in the community know people or have family that are on campus and were really confused as to why they were there. And I know that there was this top-down communication happening from the administration even to the sheriff's office, which made everything really strange. And I think that there wasn't unification from the sheriff's department and the police department on attacking the students from the administration's point of view. The sheriffs left at one point and left the campus to the students. I'm not sure now if that was because faculty was involved in negotiations or if that was just a stand down to keep people as safe as possible. By the time I got there Tuesday morning, there was a barricaded situation, and there were
Margie,
university police kind of paired up around the outer perimeter.
So let's take a moment here because this is an insane description from you, and I can say that I've heard it from every student that I've had the privilege to talk to and all the video I've seen, which is to say, really want to underscore this. This began as a peaceful demonstration and protest by students taking grievances to the campus with a set of demands. And Nicola, as a faculty member yourself in political science, like this is what we're supposed to do to exercise our free speech rights. And the level of escalation from the administration and the local police is, to me, just mind blowing. I mean, am I missing something here, Nicola? Because this seems to have escalated way more quickly than was necessary. Literally, the administration and the cops, like, definitely pouring heat. Am I missing something?
No, and this is one thing that we've been identifying as a possibility, especially as, protests or as academic freedom has been really cracked down on, not just in the California State University system, of which Cal Poly Humboldt is a part, 23 campuses across the state. We've seen the attacks on academic freedom. And what I mean by that is the freedom to say what you know to be true in the classroom, to say what you know in the classroom, and in your, like, within the campus settings as well. We've seen a concerted effort nationally against critical race, gender, sexuality, against understanding and sharing histories around critical race theory, around speaking out about Palestine. So when you can see this kind of concentrated and concerted effort against free speech, then when action is taken, that the kind of tactics that are going to be turned to are going to be ramping up at the level that they have, in line with how that kind of suppression has already been taking place. And so, David, we've had occupations on Cal Poly Humboldt's campus in the past. And I was reminding our administration that right before I was a student, but while I was a community member, you probably remember this, David, there was an occupation of the Native American Forum at Cal Poly Humboldt. Yep. Before that, there was an occupation of Cal Poly Humboldt during the Occupy movement. Students have used sit-ins as a way for them to demonstrate and to stand in solidarity, to be in solidarity with national and international movements. And so this isn't something that is like completely out of left field, that the students would have used this as a tactic. This is textbook political science. But
the backlash, be expected. This is the point that I want to make. Like, this is actually to be expected, what the students did. What the reaction of both the administration and the local policing authorities was completely off the chart. And when I say to be expected, I also want to put a little more history to it. For those who don't know, Cal Poly Humboldt, once known as Humboldt State University, we're in far northern California. We like to tell our friends in San Francisco, Oakland Bay area that we the real Northern California, right? People say Northern California and say San Francisco or Oakland, but we're literally 300 miles north. We literally are closer to the Oregon border than we are to San Francisco, right? So it's a secluded place. We operate behind the redwood curtain, we say. So it's a rural place, but it's also a very special place. It's Wiyot ancestral territory. The Wiyot tribe was the first to receive land back from a municipal government, the Tuluwat Island return. I can go down the list of things that make this community really amazing. And Humboldt State University once was one of those jewels of this community. In fact, I still remember when I first came here in 2003, people talked about the Humboldt spirit, and that represented the idea that, yes, we're part of the system, but we're something unique and different, that there was a collaboration between faculty and staff and students and even the community, that it was a different experience. And when I first got here, I really felt that. And I got to tell you that it's been getting worse and worse, the neoliberal approach to this campus, but it just ramped up during Jackson's administration, and then during the conversion to Cal Poly. Again, I'm going to invite either Margie or Nicola into the conversation, because again, that's how I've experienced it. Something fundamentally has changed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Margie, I don't know if you want to jump in on that. Go for it if you do. I have some thoughts, but I'll defer to you first.
As a student And as I'm a non-traditional student, so I'm a little older than a lot of the students. And I tried to take a step back in this situation because I feel from my personal standpoint that this is a generational healing. And I feel that this new generation, I'm sorry, I'm going to get choked up a little bit. I feel like this new generation of young people have figured something out, and we need to support them, and we need to have room for their conversations. And these 20-year-old to 25-year-old people are not children. They're young adults, and they're really smart, and they're in college, and they have thought a lot of this stuff through at such a high level, and their cause is so pure that it cannot be denied. And I think that the university protests are a symbol of that. And I think that those of us here are probably all old enough to have some either memory of the vibration of the civil rights movement and the 1960s movement to stop the Vietnam War, and coming into awakening of empire and settler colonialism. And like Nicola was talking about, as one of my favorite professors at school, about decolonization as a thinking, as a mode of intervention in ceaseless war.
Thank you, Margie, for sharing that. I mean, like, I also think that this is an emotional topic because this is a reckoning. And we're coming into, like, it's not graceful, it's not gentle. I think that a lot of things that we're going through right now are kind of part of this process of us, as you're saying, like, there's healing that's happening, and there are people who are pushing conversations in ways that maybe we haven't had those conversations before. The administration is terrified of the kinds of conversations that we're trying to have. The whole email exchanges now, after they've rocked in and cleared the entire campus using riot police and, you know, the hundreds against dozens of protesters, you know, was framed as this like out of the need to reestablish order. And so this is the kind of like interesting division that's taking place, is that you have this control, power over, order, fall in line, don't speak out. And then you have this like world that's like fueled by our dreams and like imagination of the world that we want to live in, and the achievable ends that we're playing out in our communities, and the struggles that we're dialoguing with one another when we're in movements together and we don't know how to get through it, but we're making the commitment to try to rumble with this shit so we can get through it, you know, and find something on the other side. I think that what we're having right now is really an ideological divide about the role of universities. And as David was saying, you know, there's this neoliberal business as usual, control, power over, it's the product, just fall in line, you know, teach the class, graduate the student, make the money approach that administration is trying to really force down people's throats. And they're doing it in every single instance of breaking student organizing, breaking union organizing, pushing back on us in our university spaces, which ought to be the spaces where we really have vibrant, transformative stuff going on that allows us to actualize a different era, something that takes all that fuel that Margie is talking about with students and gives more power to it. Like, I'm in the process of learning, and sorry, I'm now on a soapbox, David, so feel free to jump in at any point. But, you know, really the way that I see it is, I don't know how to do this stuff perfectly. All I can do is show up and try to be honest with the things that I know and what I don't know. And I teach political science, so I bring the information of what I've learned and what I can help to provide tools for my students so that they can take action and do the things that they're doing to make things different. But also it is tough because there are things that I'm having to learn all the time too. And that's why we do things like the Decolonizing Economics Summit, because we're all trying to figure out, well, what role do I have in this and how do I participate in a conversation that I may not have the tools to interact with right now, but I'm learning something along the way, and maybe I can apply it in a way that checks back on what's happening on that university campus.
Thank you both, Margie and Nicola, because both of you have really underscored what I believe is part of what is happening. And that is, and I'm going to now quote Antonio Gramsci, who said Antonio Gramsci was a philosopher, a Marxist who believed that in the 1930s that there was going to be a socialist revolution and win, and then ended up imprisoned by Mussolini and wrote the prison notebooks, literally in prison, and was asking himself and others, like, what did we miss? What happened? We thought that we were right on the verge of winning. And Gramsci said this: the old world is dying and a new world is struggling to be born. Now is the time of monsters. And I think that that's a really powerful recognition of the reckoning that Nicola talked about, that Margie talked about. And that is, we are seeing an effort to double down on a worldview that is dominator, power over, extractive, oppressive. And a new world, and really a return to the old way of doing things before the enclosure movement, before capitalism, before settler colonialism, a yearning to return to a power with, yearning for collaborative, a yearning to a kind of regenerative, a yearning to go back to the way we're supposed to be living. And there's a clash, there is no doubt about it. And I really think it's worth pointing out again and again that these are peaceful demonstrations that we're seeing happening, erupting across the country, and the police and the administration are doubling down with the level of violence and state repression. And it is reminiscent of the Occupy movement. And let's remember that we now know, thanks to Freedom of Information Act requests, that that was a coordinated effort under a Democratic Party administration, through the Department of Homeland Security and the Obama administration. It was coordinated at the national level. And I got to tell you that it is very clear to me, and I'll bet my bottom dollar, that when we will, lawyers like myself will do this, we will file the appropriate Freedom of Information Act. And I'm going to guarantee you right now that at the very least, we're going to find Governor Newsom and the Democratic Party administration all over coordinated efforts, not only with Jackson, but up and down the state to try to clamp down on this. So that's how I see this. And I think it's important to come to terms with the fact that this is a movement that is broad, it's deep, it's mostly uncoordinated at this point, but what you're seeing is it's coalescing and coming together, and it scares the shit out of the ruling elite.
Yeah. On that point, just to make it, just as, call it out, I mean, Gavin Newsom in our last contract negotiations never stepped in to help settle the contract with faculty, between the CSU administration and faculty. These much needed gains that we needed within our contract. We took things all the way to a unprecedented rolling strike on our campuses at the end of 2023, and then a full system-wide strike in January 2024, and the governor was silent. And the ways that the support that has been needed for education has just been absent, and the ways that we need support for unions is just not there, I think speaks to why we need these kinds of moments like the Decolonizing Economics Summit, where we can talk about the topics like unions as a mycelial network of the environmental movement. We can talk about the education that we know about decolonizing and how this is transformative to our world and necessary for us to be able to tap into all of this power that is coming together from different spaces. And so I'm really excited, and I feel really honored to be a part of this conference, even though, I'm like, I still feel like every year I'm like, what am I doing? I don't know what I'm doing. And just learning the whole time, I'm like, wow, what am I going to walk away from this conference learning this year from all the incredible people that come together for 3 days to talk about all these topics that we're discussing right now, but in much fuller detail.
Folks, you're listening and are watching Redneck Gone Green. I'm your host, David Cobb. We're speaking with Margie Wolf, a volunteer and support person in the local community, and Nicola Walters, who is a lecturer at Cal Poly Humboldt in the political science department and a leader in the California Faculty Association statewide. I'm going to use this opportunity to first acknowledge John's powerful comment, and that is that Israel is pouring gasoline on the fire regarding these protests. Let's not forget the fact that the reason these protests are happening is because of an absolute genocide in an open air prison in Gaza and the U.S. support of that. And what we're seeing is a level of an uprising in resistance. And I'm going to use this opportunity to shift into the Decolonizing Economics Summit from Earth Day to May Day and go to you, Margie, because I actually got to know you pretty well last year because you were a leader of the Earth Day Festival, which was really kind of like a carnival-esque atmosphere that led into the Earth Day Summit. So I'm going to ask you back on to talk about what inspired you to put so much time and energy into the Earth Day Festival, not only last year, but this year.
Well, one of the ways that I engage community is by being of service. So when I get asked to join groups in community, I'm always, for sure I'm there. And I am a person who has a cosmology that believes that we live within the earth and that we are stewarding each other and that we are relations with everything. And that makes me want to celebrate holidays like Earth Day, and I thought it would be amazing to join. And Decolonization Economics Summit, I felt that the organization together with Earth Day of creating a bridge between economic and social justice. Like for instance, this year we're doing the Earth Day to May Day, which we are connecting labor justice with earth justice. We're connecting social justice with earth justice. We're claiming that all of those things are related, which relates to my cosmology. And so following that path has led me to the wonderful people that I've been able to engage with and to help organize the Earth Day. The first year was really fun. The second year we were a little more serious. We had a very, very vibrant kid zone and a lot of really great speakers and some wonderful music. And I think that is what has been getting me through the demonstration and being the support system that I've been able to be from my perspective. And believing that some of these situations have to be difficult and that being comfortable in our uncomfortableness is part of moving the social construct in a way that it's more equitable for everyone and everything. Settler colonialism is a zero-sum game. It's super bad math, and I'm really logical, so I don't like that. And so I like having any discussions on how we get our human species through late-stage capitalism. And that's my soapbox. Okay.
I love it, Nicola. I got to say, I think that might be the tagline. Settler colonialism is bad math.
Yeah.
Because it really is unsustainable. Like, let's just be very clear about this, right? Like, at the end of the day, we know for a fact that it's just not sustainable, right? And so, Nicola, I want to come to you because you actually, for the last several years, have been really the glue, the coordinator, bringing all this together. And I'm going to give you an opportunity and a challenge to say, why the heck should people sign up for the Decolonizing Economics Summit? What's it all about?
Well, it's so funny. I kind of want to just go on a little mini tangent and just say that, but though it's connected, and I think it's part of the process. I think it's my why for doing the conference is also why I think people should be a part of it. I mean, I have been involved in environmental and social justice movements since I was in college. I got my sort of stripes doing a campus activism around things like immigration, because I lived in Arizona, and this was when they passed SB 1070 and were targeting people of color in our community and deporting folks. And so actually having confrontation with ICE agents while I was a college student was kind of part of my process, and part of the organizing that I was doing. So it's just interesting. And then like at the same time, like we were seeing people being slaughtered at the hands of the US government foreign policy in Iraq, and the cyclical warfare that had just continued to rain violence over people and was targeting children as well. And so these kinds of things were just like really activating a lot of people on my college campus. And when I became a graduate student at Cal Poly Humboldt, and was studying really the intersections of environmentalism and ecology and our economies and how these things all come together, I was motivated to go to Standing Rock. And that's when I had really the opportunity to step up to that dividing line between the state and capital, and see how the state protects corporate interests, property over people. And I could feel that, within my body, and, being arrested in that space really had a tremendous impact on me. I really brought those kinds of things back to my community in Humboldt, and have continued to work on, like we did a Water is Life from Standing Rock to the Klamath, and trying to connect the things that we're seeing happening across the country when it came to protecting energy and infrastructure and industries at the expense of local communities, how that would impact us in Humboldt with liquefied natural gas pipelines and other things that were on the horizon for us at that moment. So when I think about decolonizing economics, there was personal things that really brought me to recognizing that this is where I see my power being able to be exercised as an opportunity to do what I believe is right. It's just a calling within you. And when you hear that calling, you can't ignore it. But I think that this is really an opportunity for other people to learn the kinds of things that, can help them on their own journeys, because it's sometimes a little bit of a confusing process for us to think. I hear it all the time in the sort of like defeatism of, well, yeah, like the world's really screwed up. What are we supposed to do about it? Yeah, capitalism is a machine. Look at how powerful the state is. Look at the crackdown on organizers and students and people who are really fighting for a better future. How can we really do anything about it? And the Decolonizing Economics Summit is really about strategies and solutions. It's people that are implementing the change that we're looking for. And so it looks like solidarity economics. It looks like art and activism. It looks like using the media as a tool for decolonizing. It looks for like all the different kinds of sessions that we have available. And for me, that just continues to ignite the hope, because when we reel from these movement times and these pains where we're actually interacting with law enforcement, actually being incarcerated by the state, actually being cracked down on for speaking truth to power, these kinds of things can be really emotionally impactful. And having an opportunity to find something that can be vibrant, that can be hopeful, I think is the way that we continue to rejuvenate ourselves, and keep the movement building towards that future that we all deserve.
So one of the things that I want to lift up is that the first year it was simply called the Post-Capitalism Conference, but the second year it changed to Decolonizing Economics, a post-capitalist economy. Nicola, I'm going to ask you, what was that change about?
So this is a little unfair that you're putting the question on me, David, because this happened right before I came on. So I came in second year, but I know that you've told this story before, so you can fill in the gaps. But faculty on Cal Poly Humboldt, specifically Dr. Kutcha Rising-Baldi from the Native American Studies program, and chair of Native American Studies, had really put pressure on the conference organizers to think, okay, you're talking post-capitalism, but you have to think about how this intersects with decolonization. And if we're thinking post-capitalism, but we're not thinking about indigenous wisdom, knowledges, experiences to help guide that process, then you're gonna miss the whole thing, you're gonna miss it. And you're not gonna have a handle on really what we need, those tools, those resources that are gonna help us to move forward, different ways of thinking about things that are gonna help us to actually break down this sort of notion of post-capitalism and give us something that can be truly transformative. And so I think that the decolonizing process for me is like learning about like how we're educating ourselves of the harm, of the impact of the impact of these kinds of the colonial systems that have such deep influence in so many different spaces, how we understand, can look at it, and also heal together through those difficult conversations and see opportunities for us to then work together so that we're collaborating, building the solidarity and strength that we need for a real movement.
And I want to invite folks personally, if you are watching this, listening to this, come to and join us. Margie, myself, Nicola are all going to be at the Decolonizing Economics Summit. It's an online event. It is conveniently located at decolonizingeconomics.org. So it's very easy to get to. We'll drop it into the various materials that we put out. But I'm going to invite you, Margie, to ask, what is it about this Decolonizing Economics Summit that inspired you, that brought you into this? Because this is not, you were quite active last year.
I was quite active last year, and I have furthered into studying decolonization as a topic. And to be frank about my identity, I'm a mixed person, and I am part Indigenous American, and it is a strange world to live in where you stand in two worlds, and I've been navigating that and experiencing ideas of decolonization, experiencing Native American studies, thinking of things in a way that is more in line with my natural being, just feels better. And I'm a very feelsy person. I'm very logical and smart because I'm in school and I'm a college student, but I go by my feels first. And my feelings are that decolonization is a core topic. It's core to healing, I'll bring it back to generational healing. Settler colonialism is a trauma, and decolonization is an intervention. So the more that we incorporate decolonization into our current mind and heart set, the more that can go into our human sphere of thinking, and the more knowledge can build outside of the neoliberal construct that is super illogical. And decolonization gives people an alternative. Like, for a lot of people, they're like, well, this is the best that we have, and you think you have something better. And I think that decolonization is better. Commerce and doing life in a way where the social construct and the way we take care of each other is our highest priority, not our commodity.
You know, it's really interesting to me because I just refuse to believe that this racist, sexist, class oppressive, destructive society is literally the best that we can do. And you look through history and you find, oh, actually, there's I still remember Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan and others during that the time of the beginning of neoliberalism. And there's a special place in hell for both Margaret Thatcher, Ronald Reagan, and Bill Clinton, who the mantra, there is no alternative. Tina, they said, Tina, there is no alternative. This is the way it has to be and will always be. To which I reply, ta-ta. There are thousands of alternatives. And almost all of them have roots literally hundreds of thousands of years old in how human beings have organized ourselves. This is ridiculous. And I really think it's really worth pointing out that this awakening that we're seeing, and I'm really going to use this as an invitation to anybody who's listening to my voice or watching me now, please come join us at decolonizingeconomicsummit.org and engage, because there's an amazing series of panels and discussions that any one of which would be remarkable, but there's literally 15 of these coming out, including an opening session. And I'm going to invite you, Nicola, to actually sort of just give us a quick little thumbnail of what can be expected when we come into the Decolonizing Economics Summit.
Well, I just wanted to say that I think that sometimes when we think about summit, conference, like decolonization, all these 50-cent words that we're using and talking about intersectional class, all these things coming together, it can feel a little alienating. And I feel like that's one of the things that I really like about this summit is that it's not an academic conference in the sense that you have to be an academic to participate and share and present at this conference. In the past, we've had to really reinforce that with people. We're like, no, we don't care. The only thing that we care about, we don't care about your title and how many letters are next to your name. What we care about is, are you on the ground? Are you part of the movement doing the work? Do you have something to share to be part of this? Where are you? And I think people that are coming together are just incredible change makers. Yes, a lot of folks hold, director positions and, are leading national organizations, and really it's incredible to have their expertise and everything coming forward. But really what I think about the summit is that it's an opportunity for people, no matter where they are, no matter how much they've had a chance to think about these kinds of things, there's something for everyone. There's something for you if you care about environmental justice, social justice. You just want to learn. You just want to find out what is meant by decolonization. All these things are part of the process. So coming into the summit, think about it as coming into a space where it's going to be different than maybe where you participated before. You're going to have a chance to hear from folks who are teaching and organizing in Humboldt, who can share more about the kinds of events that have transpired, but offer goals for the summit, share with you a little bit about what the summit is aiming to accomplish, and the kinds of tools and takeaways that you may be able to garner from being a part of it. We also this year have a lot of different interactive components. We're going to have Zoom networking spaces, opportunities for people to debrief, to rumble with some of the difficult questions or the emerging questions that are coming up for them. And so we really hope that this is not just about you checking in and being spoken to about things, it's not about that. It's about how do we connect with each other and actually build more strength for the people and the organizations that are on the ground doing things and making the change that we want to see in the world. And so this is part of us strengthening that work. It's part of us connecting to different areas of work, learning different things about what's going on, and really stripping down a lot of the kind of preconceived notions about who gets to be a part of movement. Because as you can see, just like at Cal Poly Humboldt, student-led organizing, bringing national attention to an issue that is being, despite the best efforts of Washington and the mobilization of law enforcement as a facet of that, despite their attempts to suppress this kind of dialogue, despite their attempts to suppress this kind of action, the movement is blossoming and it's not going anywhere. We have people who are committed still to these kinds of actions. And even I want to prop up one of my colleagues, Rohula Aga Saleh, who's currently incarcerated in Humboldt, or being held by law enforcement after his arrest yesterday, and is now participating in a hunger strike, has denied bail, and is working to continue to bring attention to the Palestinian struggle, the needs for visibility on this issue, and the fervor, really the unwavering commitment to stand for something that is bigger than themselves, knowing that these actions have meaning and matter. So this isn't going anywhere. They can try to roll cops in and, enact violence against students and try to make people go away, but something is blossoming out of this, and we'll have an opportunity to talk about that more in the summit tomorrow.
Margie, I want to bring you into the conversation as we're coming to the end of the program to ask you the same sort of question, and that is there anything particular at this Decolonizing Economics Summit that is either inspiring to you or you want to lift up? Just open the space for you.
Thank you so much. A couple of quick things that I am really interested in is artivism, art and activism. Was a glassblower for 15 years of my life. I love all forms of art, and I think that art tells the story of humanity. So that's going to be really interesting for me. And Food Sovereignty Lab. I think that being in the MAC this week, the Mutual Aid Kitchen, made me highly aware of how food is weaponized in authoritarianism. And I
And
think
thank you
that food
both. And I
sovereignty
also want
is
to
the
really
decolonizing intervention on that. Those are
I want to lift up Nicola's comment about the professor at Cal Poly Humboldt, Rahula Aghasala. And not only was this professor arrested, but
yes, Professor.
they have already rejected bond. They have started a hunger strike until he and all students are released. And I want to quote from his statement. Quote, I refuse to accept the label of criminal for standing up for an ethical reason, he said. Our arrest on stolen land and in a place that we consider home is an act of violence. As a public university, this is just, to me, an outrageous thing that what we see is a level of police repression and violence targeting both students and faculty. And what we're seeing is Nicola and Margie have both said, frankly, repeatedly, and that is that there is a growing resilience and a growing resistance, that this is not to be denied. This moment is very clear. It is, in the words of the old labor anthem, a which side are you on moment. And I'm not typically a binary thinker or actor, but this is a very clear example where you can't really sit this one out, folks. You're going to have to take a position on whether you think it is immoral, whether you think genocide is immoral or acceptable. And what are you called to do? Now, I'm not challenging anybody in a harsh way, but I am inviting people to open your heart, use your mind, and then use your body and your voice to do whatever it is that you're called to do. For me, I'm very clear. I use this program, Redneck Gone Green, as a way to bring forward voices, actors who are actually on the ground making change. I also, though, am leaning in on the Decolonizing Economics Summit because I want to share my, frankly, enthusiasm for seeing that there is a path forward. And I'll end my own sort of thought process on this. There's a wonderful poem that I love, and and a refrain is, follow the ones who know the way. And what I recognize is that Indigenous people and the worldview of connectedness, of balance, that's the way. And I descend from Indigenous people, but I live amongst Indigenous people in Humboldt. So over generations, my people were basically driven off of their ancestral homelands in England and, Scotland and Ireland. Ancestors were in right relationship and balance, and they were traumatized, driven off of their land. They came to this continent, Turtle Island, and were traumatized and drove people off their land. So I am literally a descendant of traumatized and traumatizer. Plenty of trauma to go around. But instead, I'm more interested in finding the generational healing that Margie talked to so eloquently earlier. And I really do believe that the decolonization process is a path and an invitation to some healing. It takes work, but it's work that I think is worth doing. And I know that we're coming to the end of our hour, so I do want to take this opportunity to invite Margie for any last comments and gratitude for coming onto this program. Margie?
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the time and I appreciate the privilege to speak for the other students on campus. A couple of things. Yes, Professor Ruhela is refusing bond. We really hope that we can get all of the arrestees out by the end of the day, but we're not sure. The last I was at the courthouse, 8 people's bonds had been paid, and people were still trying to raise money and to get things moving forward. Right now on the ground, there is and was a protest in front of the courthouse and a support system waiting for people to come out as they come out of the courthouse from being arrested. We're going to try to give everybody triage and hugs and love and food and make sure that they get to their homes and their vehicles safely. And that's where we're at currently as far as the protest. I think that there will be an update on KMUD News.
Thank you so much, Margie. I'm going to turn to you, Nicola, for your final thought.
I really appreciate people to show.
Sorry. We're having a little bit of connectivity issues, so apologies, Margie. Nicola, your final thoughts.
Final thoughts, David. I don't know. I think that my final thoughts are actually less about any of the things that we've been maybe covering, but still related to them. It's just like, we need to take care of each other right now. And I'm really feeling the need to, right, when we see things that are happening and we're identifying the crises of our time, we can feel like there's a need that there's urgency. And yes, there's urgency in responding to like holding the line and protecting people and, using the resources sometimes that are at our disposal to participate in different movement spaces, but also slowing down and giving ourselves grace and giving ourselves time, giving ourselves space during this time to observe, to learn, to reflect on where we are in participation with all of this, I think is really part of the process as well. And so I just say that as people are grieving in their own ways or hurting in their own ways about what they're seeing on the news and what they're seeing in their communities, or just like witnessing what is going on in relation to all of these issues, I just think that it's important that we remind ourselves that there's a need for care for ourselves, of our community. And I love that, Margie, really what you're talking about with food sovereignty is part of that. It can be weaponized, but also can be a really important part of maintaining the care and the maintenance of the movements as well. So thank you all so much for having me here. And I hope that I see more of you tomorrow and through Friday at the Decolonizing Economics Summit.
Thank you so much, Nicola, and thank you, Margie, as well. And I want to thank you, the listener viewer of Redneck Gone Green. This community is growing. We're getting larger, stronger, and better organized. And we are trying to play our role in the ecosystem. Because remember, nobody can do everything, but everybody can do something. And what we're trying to do is bring you voices of people on the ground who are making change and inviting you into figuring out what it is your role in this growing movement. Next week, we'll be joined by April Donner. April is with the the Asset-Based Community Development Institute. She'll be actually talking about the work that she does there, again, and helping communities understand, map better what it is that they actually have and putting it into practice. So in the meantime, thank you so much for what you're doing. Keep on keeping on. Peace.